matoy chalkeinu, ashreinu, ashreinu, matoy chalkeinu, ashreinu, 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 matoy chalkeinu, ashreinu, ashreinu, matoy chalkeinu, v'yumanoim, umanoim goyroleinu, umayofoy, afoyru shaseinu, umanoim, umanoim goyroleinu, umayofoy, afoyru shaseinu, v'yumanoim, noim, noim goyroleinu, umayofoy, afoyru shaseinu, umanoim, noim, noim goyroleinu, umayofoy, afoyru shaseinu, umanoim, umanoim goyroleinu, umayofoy, afoyru shaseinu, umanoim, umanoim goyroleinu, umayofoy, afoyru shaseinu. Ashreinu, 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 matoy chalkeinu, ashreinu, ashreinu, matoy chalkeinu, ashreinu, 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 matoy chalkeinu, ashreinu, ashreinu, matoy chalkeinu, v'yumanoim, umanoim goyroleinu, umayofoy, afoyru shaseinu, umanoim, umanoim goyroleinu, umayofoy, afoyru shaseinu, v'yumanoim, noim, noim goyroleinu, umayofoy, afoyru shaseinu, umanoim, noim, noim goyroleinu, umayofoy, afoyru shaseinu, umanoim, umanoim goyroleinu, umayofoy, afoyru shaseinu, umanoim, umanoim goyroleinu, umayofoy, afoyru shaseinu.
morning, good morning. Print out your source sheets. We're ready to begin. Ashrechem Yisroel Lifnei mi atem b'metahanim umim toeres Lifnei mi atem b'metahanim toeres Yeah.
Okay.
How are you?
Everything's good. Baruch Hashem.
Happy Lag Boimer
Happy Lag Boimer.
to everybody.
You're on. Everybody gonna be on. 400,000 people.
How many people?
About 400,000.
400,000 people, really? Wow. Okay. Gewaldig.
I'll go up to Tosh. A big bonfire in Tosh.
In Tosh. Okay.
Black Live is tonight, huh?
By Mr. Knight, yeah.
You got me scared, huh? I nearly got confused about my count. It's really a Hasidic holiday, you know? All the Orthodox synagogues here in Montreal, they don't participate. They don't have bonfires. They don't have, it's a big difference.
Okay, Chevra. So we're up to page... In your source sheets, we're up to page 68, if hey. There's just something about the camera that's bothering me. Let me just fix it. V'hine, Seif Hey in the Mimer. Just announced tonight is a Hatzalathon and a Siyum Sefer Torah on unitedforprotection.com. Will also be aired on the yeshiva.net. A lot of music and inspiration, and I will also have the privilege of addressing the crowd at tonight's Hatzalathon. at around 9:30, 9:27 p.m. A lot of good stuff I saw they arranged. Be'ezer Hashem, Sunday morning there will be a shir, 10 o'clock a.m. We're going to be learning about what is Mashiach, the Rambam's view. This is going to be a few Sundays. It begins this coming Sunday, 10 a.m. You can watch it right here on the yeshiva.net. We're going to learn Rambam Hilchas Malachim and the explanations of the Lubavitcher Rebbe on this Rambam Hilchas Malachim, where he discusses the Geula. Good way to start off your week with the consciousness of Geula. That's this Sunday, 10 a.m. Be'ezer Hashem, right here on the yeshiva.net. And Monday morning we'll resume our regular 7:30 shir. Sif Hey. V'hinei ikir inyin birur prate hamidus nishlam b'yom lag b'yom. After he explained at length the difference between bringing the omer and counting the omer. There's working on the moichin, how your animal soul sees the world and how your animal soul experiences the world. And for this you need a 49-day count, which is a 49-day avodah, working with the details, the pratim of the midas of the animal soul. Every detail, chesed, gvura, teferes, netzach, yesed, malchus, and each one encompassed by all seven, and he went through midas ha-chesed, chesed shebechesed, gvura shebechesed, teferes shebechesed, netzach shebechesed, hoyt shebechesed, yesod shebechesed, malchus shebechesed, both in the divine soul and in the animal soul, which is what asks and begs for the refinement during Sfiras Omer. And that's why the focus is on the details, the dissecting, and explained that the count of days, even today, is Minat Torah. The count of weeks today is only Midrabbanan, because the count of weeks represents tackling the core essence, the quintessence of the midah. That's only Shaykh with the Beis HaMikdash. You can't obligate it and demand it from somebody. You can do it. People can do it and try and work towards it, but it can't be a mitzvah chiyuv b'nat Torah. We're tackling your days, which is the way the midah is manifested in a specific behavior, thought, speech, or action. This is obligatory even today, according to Rabbi Yeruchim. After this whole explanation, he says, Sifei v'hinei kirinyan biru prate hamidus nishlam b'yom lag b'omer. Even though Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer, is not the end of Svira, but nonetheless a primary dimension in working through and refining the details of one's emotional experiences is completed on the day of Lag BaOmer. Why? Shubchines hoyt shebahayt. Because the Sfiras HaOmer of Lag BaOmer, the 18th of year, is always the hoyt aspect of hoyt. This week of Lag BaOmer is the week of Hoyt. So the night before Lag BaOmer is Netzach Shebahoyt, the Netzach aspect of Hoyt. The sphere of Lag BaOmer is always Hoyt Shebahoyt. Shezeu HaSoif Likir HaMidas. And that's not the end of all the midas, but it's the end of the Ikir HaMidas, of the primary midas. As he will explain, Chesed, Gvura, Teferes, Netzach, Hoyt, you're going to have still Yesod and Malchus. And you still have in Hoyt also Yesod of Hoyt and Malchus of Hoyt. But the Iker Hamidus end with Hoyt. Yesod and Malchus is another element, as we will see. And in Hoyt itself, the Iker of Hoyt ends with Hoyt Shebahoyt, because Yesod and Malchus, just like in the Midas themselves, in the general ones, Yesod and Malchus are already a different realm. In Hoyt itself, the Yesod of Hoyt and Malchus of Hoyt is already outside of Iker Hamidus, and that's why, like BaOmer, Hoyt Shebahoyt is the end of Iker, the primary component of Midas. For Inyan Baza, what does this mean? There's a concept called Hoyd Hoydah, which means thankfulness, gratitude. Hoyd Shebahoyd within Hoydah is the lowest possible dimension of it. Shemoide Shekenu Av Sheina Mevim B'Sichle. What is Hoydah? Hoydah means, over here, Hoydah is usually translated as gratitude. Here it's also translated as Moida, which is I acquiesce. For example, you'll have in the Gemara, you'll have Moidim Chachamim Li Reb Meir. or Moide Rabbi Yehuda, or Moide Reb Shimon. I'm Moide to you. Moide means I held differently than you. But at some point, I acquiesce, I submit. The word is submit. I surrender. I'm Moide. And the truth is, thanks, when you give thanks, it's also a form of submission. I owe you something. It's vulnerable. Hapam oides Hashem. When Yehuda was born, Leah said, now I could thank. Now I'm going to thank Hashem. And the Medrash says, oide doesn't only mean thank, it means also confess. Because Yehuda is the first one in Chumash who publicly confesses his error with Tamar. Cain also makes a confession, but that's between him and God. Gadol aveinim in his sight. The first one to say, tzadka, she's right, me many. Yehuda makes a public confession. So Haidah means thank you. Haidah means confession, both very vulnerable. Haidah also means I'm moide to you, I submit to you, which is a form of confession. Because every confession is I say I'm sorry. What I did was wrong. You were the right, I was wrong. I'm not saying tzaddikim anachnu v'lo chatanu. Anachnu v'seinu chatanu, Hashamnu. That's what confession is. But moide here, moide is I acquiesce, I'm moide to you. And the chiddush is shemoide shekeinu av she'enim mevin b'sichle. Sometimes it's something that's not fully grasped in my mind. In other words, my own opinion was not this way. But then I realize that I'm wrong. And I may not fully get it, I may not fully understand it, because if I would have fully understood it, I wouldn't have had another opinion. But nonetheless, there's a truth that's glaring at me. I have to be moide. I may not be fully comfortable with it, I may not fully get it, but I'm moide. That's Haidah. Va'adugmal is an example. You have a brilliant sage whose chachma, whose wisdom is wondrous, stupendous, transcendent above ordinary people. There's also a smaller sage, a relatively great sage, but nonetheless of a different caliber. You have somebody, he's a chacham katan, he has a connection to ideas, he's an intellectual. But when this great sage communicates, he also doesn't understand it. Even though he's a chacham, but he's a chacham katan, and when he hears this chacham, it doesn't get it, it goes over him. But since he has an appreciation of ideas, so even if he doesn't understand, if he doesn't grasp acutely the chachma of the great sage, he may not understand it, but he senses that this is something stupendous, this is something amazing. He understands that he doesn't understand, and he appreciates it, he's marveling at it. In other words, he has enough of a chush, enough of a sensitivity to know that this is sheer brilliance. What the brilliance is, I don't know. But I understand enough to know this is good. Therefore, it's true, you can't say he knows what the man is saying, or he understands it, he grasps it, he contains it. This is called Haidah. He's Maida, he may not understand that this person, I have to surrender myself before his ideas. It's a different light, it's a different caliber. Because this person is intelligent enough to sense that you're standing in the presence of greatness, of absolute genius. Because he is an intellectual, so he has enough appreciation to understand that this human being, I ought to become a student, to surrender to him. Even though I couldn't understand what he said. But now you have another person. But then you have a person who's very simple. He doesn't know about ideas. He doesn't operate in this world, in the world of seichel. He's not shaykh to it. He's not shaykh to the real world of intellect or ideas. So you can't even say that he understands that he should be moide, he should surrender, he should submit, he should acquiesce to this great sage. So the fact that he should be moide also comes through haidah. It also comes through being moide. He's moide that he has to be moide. He doesn't even understand that he has to be moide. V'zeu inyan haid shebahid. Haidah shebahaidah. She'inyan ha'haid haidah gufa ene mitzad chachma bin adas. Ein mitzad chesed gura teferes. Ela mitzad haidah ba'alma. The haidah itself comes with haidah, through haidah. You have a person who really gets it. He internalizes it. Chachma, bina, das. Experiences the emotion of it. Chesed gura teferes. You have some of the situation. I see there's something special here. I get it enough to know that I have to surrender. I have to stick around. I have to become your disciple. That, yeah. Why, what it is, I don't know. It's too beyond me. But I got that it's beyond me. That itself is already an appreciation. You're sitting, you're hearing, and you realize that it's brilliant, but sometimes a person doesn't even realize that. You have to have a certain appreciation to realize that this is beyond you. If you have no appreciation, you don't even realize it's beyond you because the whole thing is out of your realm. So you can't say that there's haidah, a maida, even though I don't understand, but I understand that I have to be maida. That doesn't exist. What you do have is haid shebahid. A maida that I have to be maida. In other words, even the haidah, the bittul, the surrender, the submission, also comes through haidah. A maida that I have to be maida. I don't even understand that I have to be maida. You have sometimes that the haidah comes with tzad chachma, bina, das, chesed, gura, teferes. You have sometimes a maida that I have to be maida. That's why he says it's the lowest level.
Can I just clarify, is the analogy that, is this haid shebahid associated with the ish pashut?
Yeah. Yeah. So this simple man, you have a ish chacham, he doesn't understand. But he understands enough that, whoa, I don't understand. It's glaring, and the genius is glaring at him. You say, this is where you should hang out. Hopefully after 10 years you'll understand something. Maybe after a year. But
his haid does not flow from haid shebahid, the Baal Seichel.
So the Baal Seichel, his haid is appreciated in Chachma or Bina or Das or Chesed Gura Teferes, tells him the appropriate expression now is haidah.
So his haid is a haid within one of the earlier traditions.
Yes. So his haid comes from, so to speak, a higher, a more sophisticated realm within the soul.
This is where the integration idea is really coming out. Right?
Yeah.
So different people operate on
Different people operate on different frequencies, exactly. But haid shebahid is therefore a gewaldige thing. I may not understand why I should be maida. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not moved to be maida. But I'm maida that I should be maida. That itself is a haidah. That's called haidah shebahaidah. The haidah itself is with haidah. Right? We say this. Meidim anachnu lach shator v'kena b'yisenu etzebrechus brachas v'aydois kein chayenu skaimenu v'noshu v'lech l'ach tzanach l'od chav le'evo shalom al shanu meidim lach. So he says we're meida on the fact that we're meida, which is haidah sheba haidah. V'zui amadrega yisrachrena b'kedusha, and in holiness this is the lowest level, but it's kedusha. Al Jam Razal on this Chazal say, Mandalay Karab Moidim ain't come with Chisames. Chazal tell us, the Gemara says about Bekamba, like he says in the footnotes, about Bekamba Tazayan and in Zoyar. Somebody who doesn't kneel, who doesn't bow to Hashem by Moidim, he doesn't come up, he doesn't rise for the resurrection. Chisames. What does this mean? Kikam kasher ein etzla inyan hayidiyah. A person may not always comprehend, But the fact that I know that I have to acknowledge, submit, surrender, a person has hope. You're fine. What do they say in recovery, the first step? I'm not in control. I can't figure this out. I can't manage my life. But I have to surrender. That's fine. Yesh le tikva, you have hope. Afilim ein le gam yediyazu. Even if you don't realize this itself, then you have to surrender. Aval yachal lifel ba'atzmi lahaydis b'tzad hayda bilvad l'laydiya. But you can get to the place of hayd shebahayd. Your hayda itself is with hayda. I don't even understand that I should be maida. But I'm maida that I should be maida. This person has hope. Sometimes a person could surrender because of a deep awareness and a deep appreciation. Sometimes I'm not even there. But something inside of me says, be maida, and the hayda itself is coming mitzad hayda. This is called hayd shebahayd. I have to submit in order to submit. It's not like my identity tells me submit. No, I don't get it.
Is the Rabbi saying these two levels again from the phrase after Kigam Kasha Einetz La'inyan Idea, and then he's going through the two stages. A person that knows how to have Idea.
Yes, this paragraph goes through two stages. There's the person who understands that he needs Haidah. He understands that this is beyond him. He understands that he's clueless. And therefore he appreciates that there's something transcendent here. That I need to be able to surrender to. And then there's somebody who doesn't even understand that. So why is he surrendering? So you should let him not surrender. This simple person who doesn't even understand that it's brilliant, but something, he's maida that he has to be maida. He says, I don't understand anything. I really don't understand. I don't get it. But I'm maida that I have to be maida. The haydah itself comes through haydah.
In a way, you could argue this is a higher level of haydah because it's not driven by any sense of his own.
You're right. In a way, it's a higher level. The lowest always has something that's the highest. In a way, it is higher because it's not driven by any sense of self. But as the Gemara says, somebody who doesn't kneel by Maidim, and his spine becomes like a serpentine. This is a metaphor for the fact he doesn't bend, he doesn't kneel, he doesn't do maidim, he doesn't bow down. So that spine doesn't have that power. Means if there's not even haydar shabahidar, the person loses his connection to holiness. At least haydar shabahidar. At least hayd shabahid. Hayd shabahid is like the baseline, the bottom. Yes, there's much higher than hayd shabahid. Avada. But at least hayd shabahid. Because hayd shabahid basically means I'm not in the mood, I don't understand, I don't feel it. I don't even feel the fact that I should submit. But I'm maida that I should submit. But the maida itself I don't feel and I don't understand. But nonetheless, I could surrender because of my surrender. And that's a profound idea. I'm saying it's a profound idea. That's a profound experience of Kedusha. It's called Hayd Shabbat. And it's very practical in people's lives. You understand how it's practical? The Olam versteht, I just have to fix something.
I think it's practical with people that suffer chronic anxiety, and there's like a sense that they have to somehow fix the problems in their life and fit everything into the right box, and they're never able to. And so it's a vicious circle of anxiety. But with Hayd Shabahai, they're able to say, you know what, I don't need to understand. I just need to submit to a higher power.
Right. It's very true. I don't have to understand everything. I have to submit to a higher power. Because people often... You can hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, sorry. People who have anxiety, people who do have anxiety, what often happens is, they want to figure it all out and they want to get rid of all of it and they want to control all of it. And sometimes you can't. But you can have Haitcha B'Haid. But your mind says, no. So you have to sometimes be Maida, they have to be Maida. Because your mind is not going to agree. Your mind and your heart is going to scream, no. Be anxious, don't surrender at all, you're in control, figure it out. And you're not. And you go into your mind and it gets worse. People who deal with anxiety can testify about this. It gets worse. Because you become trapped and lured into this vicious circle. Your anxiety wants you to debate. So what you need is, your mind is not telling you to be Maida. You have to be Maida that you have to be Maida. This is Haitcha B'Haid, Haidar Shabahida. The surrender itself comes through surrender. In other words, I know that you don't agree you should surrender. That's true. But surrender about the fact that you have to surrender.
This also relates to the Nitzachain aspect that we mentioned before in Haid that we were confused about. In a way, Haitcha B'Haid requires a certain victory over one's anxious, over these thoughts. You need to say, there's a point where you go, no, I'm going to surrender.
Indeed, it's connected to what we learned in the last year, that you have to be victorious. Sometimes it takes a lot of victory. This explains also the connection between Lag BaOmer and Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Meaning, not just the day, we know the day is connected, it's his yahrzeit, but it's also the Sfira, Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of Omer to Rashbi. Tehine ha'uvda shel Rashbi haisel lekasher Omer kremim Omer ktachas commission is boyer leil. The avodah of Rashbi explained earlier. This is a Lag BaOmer Fabrengen. The avodah of Rashbi was to link, to connect the deepest heights. Omek Roim is the deepest heights with Omek Tachas, with the deepest lows, the deepest highs and the deepest lows. V'lachein is galus the Omek Roim. Ad l'shayder shar shlamay l'may l'ayse b'Lag BaOmer shehu sfiras Haitcha B'Haid. Shazui amadrei ayse tachteina ba'avodah Shabban Ishlamis Avodah the Bidut Iknei Hamidus. For Oz Yichel is Psichas Hatzin Elam Shachas V'Gilu Sheder Shash Lamayla Mayla Shai Dezi Yagil L'Chal Yisrael Gilu Pnimi Yisatayra. So Lag BaOmer, which is the sphere of Haitcha B'Haid, which as we said is the lowest level in Avodah. So when a person finishes working out even this aspect in me, that my Haitcha B'Haid is also worked out, it's also encompassed in my life. In other words, even those things in life that I require Haitcha B'Haid, I work on fine-tuning that skill, that muscle of Haitcha B'Haid to surrender about the fact that you have to surrender. The fact that I have to surrender is itself something that requires surrender. And this is really a very powerful tool in healing, because I'm not always capable of feeling or understanding, but I could surrender, and that's Haitcha B'Haid. And it's an amazing, empowering idea that I can't always control the narrative of my surrender. I really have to surrender completely, even about the fact that I have to surrender. I surrender also through surrender. In other words, my system itself tells me don't surrender. But I surrender about the fact that I have to surrender. So when a person works through this, then you open the channel to touch your highest place, your shirish lamaila, oimikraim, because whenever we go down to the lowest place in us, over there somehow lay the mystery to be able to touch the highest place. What shames you most is what will heal you most. And then you can experience what's called what he calls here Gili Pnimi Torah, the revelation of the inside of Torah, which is what Reb Shimon Bar Yochai revealed. V'akoyach lifel psiches hatziner lazeh, why the avodah the hoyt shebehoyt. Shu inyan hakabalas oil, oil shel Torah commission is by leil. V'aynu she'enim eschashe b'agbalas dezman u'makim. Uklalos avedasi legamri shel lo al pitam v'das. V'lechenu ni lo yizu b'lvad sha'makim v'azman einam alim mastirim alav. Elad Rabbi gam b'zman u'makim arei poil in the svartim lachem. The ability to open up this channel of what Reb Shimon Bar Yochai revealed, the Oimik Roim, the highest of the heights, the highest of the high and the lowest of the low, comes through Hoyt Shebehoyt, which is also known as Kabbalah Sol, Oila Shel Torah. The ability, what's Kabbalah Sol? The ability Kabbalah Sol is, it's an element of surrendering to truth. I don't consider the limitations of time and space, but rather I allow my avodah to be higher than my brain. So therefore, no time and no space is going to eclipse my productivity and my avodas Hashem. On the contrary, even within time and space, the person achieves what's called usvartim lachem, as we will see. He begins the count of the Omer. In other words, Hoyt Shebehoyt is what allows for ultimate liberation, emancipation. Because as long as I'm limited to my brain's capacity, then there's moments that I could be there, and there's moments that I lose the plot. But when I say that I don't have to figure it all out, I give myself the right to surrender, and even the surrender could be. With surrender, I give myself the right to experience Hoyt Shebehoyt. I don't have to figure it all out. It doesn't have to all make sense to me. So then, the person is never limited within any particular space or within any particular time, but they always allow themselves to be in touch with the truth, with godliness, with the emes, because of this skill of Hoyt Shebehoyt. Because as long as I don't have Hoyt Shebehoyt, then I got to figure it out. So there's moments I'll figure it out, there's moments I won't, and then there's some things that are beyond me figuring it out. Hoyt Shebehoyt means I'm fine. I could really embrace the reality with bittul, with haidah. Ich verstehe nicht, that's fine. Ich verstehe nicht. I don't have to understand. I don't have to have it all figured out. I don't have to all make sense in my brain. You know, but you have to understand before you surrender. The surrender itself could be with Hoyt. I don't even have to understand that I have to surrender. It's a very freeing experience. I don't have to understand. Okay, so you don't understand.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In my mind, in relation to this, I'm doing it because I'm doing it. I always associate this with stubbornness and not with faith. I don't know which midah it corresponds to, but I'm going to do it. Even I don't understand. I know it's the right thing. I'm going to do it anyhow. But I associate it with stubbornness and not with acknowledgement.
Right. Listen, you have Hoyt Shebehoyt of the animal soul, and you have Hoyt Shebehoyt of the divine soul. Hoyt Shebehoyt of the animal soul is taka, it's like I'm just on action. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, but I'm just going to do it. I'll do it. Sometimes people shut down their brain, and it's not a good thing. They're doing things that's not rational. You explain it to them, it's not rational. I don't care. Just like you have midas hanatzchanis, right? I'll win and win and win and win, even if I destroy myself. Yosef midas hahoid. I'll surrender, even though it mamish doesn't make sense.
In the positive sense.
But in the positive sense, in the divine soul, Hoyt Shebehoyt is a tremendous blessing. It's a tremendous opportunity. It's the concept of Kabbalah Sol, which means that I don't have to control the narrative. I don't have to be in control. I don't have to understand how everything is going to work out. I don't even have to understand the meaning of it. I don't have to understand the purpose of it. I can look at it. In many ways, there is pain here. I don't know how to make sense of the situation. But I could say that I'm being moida. I'm surrendering to the plan of Hashem. I'm surrendering to the meaning and the purpose of Hashem in this situation, even though I don't get it. And sometimes, even my seichel says, don't be moida. I'm having anxiety and stress and this and that. No, you have to figure it out. And I could say, no, I don't even have to figure out the fact that I don't figure it out. I don't even have to figure out the fact that I can't figure it out. It's fine. You don't even have to figure that out. You could just surrender completely. It's a menuchas anafesh. Atatofes rebezriel.
Yeah, when you start learning Hasidus, you need first Hoyche B'Hoyt.
Explain.
Somebody starts the beginning to learn Hasidus, he doesn't understand. But his Neshama understands. He needs to surrender.
Yeah. So he says, when you start learning Chassidus, you have to have Hoyche B'Hoyt, because if not, if you try to understand, you're going to get stuck. You're not going to get anywhere, because you're going to try to fit it in, and you're going to get frustrated, and you're going to make it fit into your own expectations, and you don't open yourself up to something new. In that itself, there's two levels. There's understanding that you don't understand. That's the first level. And then there's, I don't even understand that I don't understand. But I know that this is something I have to surrender to. I just know.
This is true for the whole of Yiddishkeit. I just think it's emphasized by Chassidus, because Chassidus is emphasizing opening yourself up to the oneness of Hashem. And if you don't have Hoyche B'Hoyt, then you're never going to be able to do that, because it's by definition being open to that which transcends you.
Yeah, whenever there's something that really transcends you, Hoyche B'Hoyt is the key. And that's why it's so important for healing. And not just that I understand that I have to surrender, but even my surrender is coming through surrender. Vav. You remember the question in the beginning of the Maimer, why does the Pasuk say Svartam Lachem Macharas HaShabbos? And it created a whole debate between the Sadducees, the Tzdukim, and the Chachamim. It could have said it was Svartam Lachem Macharas HaPesach. Clear, the day after Pesach. No, it says the day after Shabbos. And the Tzdukim said it means Sunday. And the Chachamim had to prove that it doesn't mean Sunday, it means the second day of Pesach. And it was a huge debate. Just say Macharas HaShabbos. The answer is, now we'll understand. The Hine Klolos say that Aishtalshalus Nikva B'darga Shal Gdima V'ichur Mati V'loi Mati Ubeklolos Advanim U'inyan Zmanim V'seder Zmanim. Okay, he mentions here something, we learned it once in a Maimer a while ago. It's not going to be the main focus here, but I'm just going to mention it in passing because he mentions it. The whole system of how Hashem created the world is what's known as Kedima Ve'ichur. There's something before and something after. Or in other words, what we call time. Or in Kabbalah it's called Mati V'loi Mati. Mati means it arrives, V'loi Mati means it doesn't arrive. Which briefly means that the divine energy flows downward into the worlds. That's called Mati. But then it returns back to its source. Like the heart, which expands and then contracts, expands and then contracts. Like the oxygen, the lungs, we inhale and we exhale. Mati is the divine energy arrives, but then V'loi Mati, but then it returns back to its source. And then it comes back again, and it returns back to its source again. That's called Mati V'loi Mati. That's the spiritual origin of time. What is time? Time is a very mysterious reality, and it's what helped Albert Einstein reveal the amazing things that he discovered. But time still remains elusive. And the idea of time, the way it's understood in science today, is that it's part of creation. In other words, that it began with a Big Bang. Before that, there was no time and there was no space. So it's very hard to put our minds around that. What does it mean that time was created? How can time be created? Time always exists, but it's not true. Time itself is a creation. According to Kabbalah and Chassidus, time is a product of the fact of mati v'loy mati. That something is here, but it's also not here. Because that's what time is. This moment is here. It's not here anymore. It's not here. 8:17 and 3 seconds is here. It's not here. It's the next time. This is called Zmanim and Seder Zmanim. The Medrash says that before the creation of the world, there was something called Seder Zmanim. So Chassidus explains, Samach Tzedek explains, that Zmanim is the way time is manifested in our world. Seder Zmanim is the concept of time in the spiritual realms of divinity, the concept of Ratzah and Shuv, Mati and Loy Mati, Kedima and Ichur. There's a tension. The Chiyus comes and then it ascends and descends and ascends. That creates the whole structure of how our world works, which is expressed in time. Amnam. K'dei sheyuchal liyasayinu svartim lachem. Levaredes kol seder ha'ishtalshlus ad lamata mata b'emek Hine ha'koyach hazal mimacheres ha'shabbos b'chinas shalamayla miklolos inyan azman. But if you want to count all the midas, 49, in other words, you want to work through your whole system, all the way down to the lowest space, you have to begin with Macharas HaShabbos, the day after Shabbos, which represents something beyond time. Shabbos represents the pinnacle of time. The Shabbos Mekatsha V'Kaima. After the 6 days of the week comes Shabbos, which is the holiest day. As the Gemara says in Masechta Brachos and Masechta Beitza, Shabbos Mekatsha V'Kaima. Shabbos is holy on its own from heaven. We don't have to sanctify it. Friday evening comes, whatever you're involved in, holiness descends upon the world. Now there's a unit of time that is sacred. But it's still part of the unit of time. Because Shabbos exists in the realm of time, even though it's sacred time, it's transcendent time, it's spiritual time, but it still exists in time. So it's holy time, but it uses here, fascinatingly, the expression in Gemara, Daya sheyafkiyas atzma. So it's enough that he should liberate himself. It's not enough to transform all the unholiness in the world. V'lachein kashetzarech liyus usfartem lachem, shezeu inyan abirur ad lo'imek tachas, hine hakoyach hazel mimacheres haShabbos, l'mayla afilu mein the Shabbos mekatsha v'kaima, b'china shalamayla meseder ishtalshalos. When you want to do Sfiras ha'omer, which is to elevate and inspire everything in your system, even the lowest, oimek tachas, you want to get even to the lowest spaces in you. For this, he says, usfartim naskami macheres haShabbos, not in macheres haPesach. Technically, it happens the second day of Pesach. But the idea is to come up with something that's the morrow of Shabbos, beyond Shabbos, higher than Shabbos, after Shabbos, above Shabbos, even higher than Shabbos Mekatsha V'Kaima, that which is beyond the whole structure where there is time, that which transcends the concept of Zman. Because Shabbos itself, he says, even though it's so sacred, but because it's Zman, it already exists in the realm of Zman. So to speak, it's a victim of Ishtalshalos. I don't mean literally a word victim, but it's part of the process, so therefore it can't fix the process. It's part of the process, so it can't fix the process. Only that which is mimacheres haShabbos can fix the system. You know, to fix the system, you have to be out of the system. If you're in the system, you can't fix it because you're part of the problem, right? You have to always go outside. You know, companies bring in somebody from completely outside in order to be able to examine what's happening, because if you're part of it, then you're part of it. Then you, so to speak, you're not the solution. You're part of the problem. Kivayachol Shabbos is already part of Hishtalshalos. It's Zman. It's part of Zman. It's part of the system of time. It's sacred time. It's holy time. It's Shabbos Kodesh. It's Vayem Mashvi Shabbos Vayinafash. But it's an Inyan of Zman. Because it's Zman, he says, Dayish Yafkiyas Atzmai. So therefore it's enough that it itself is in tuned with the source. But you want it to transform. The whole Hishtalshalos, you want it to transform the Shtus de L'umaza, the insanity of Klippa, of unholiness. That you need something Mimacheres HaShabbos. You need something that takes you to a space that is higher than time, that is beyond time. It says about Yom Kippur, it's Tshuva, it's Kadma La'olam, right? It's completely beyond time. It takes you to a realm which is beyond time, and that's why it can fix the past also. And he explains, what does this mean? Dehine, b'shas yitzias Mitzrayim ha'isei sarusa de la'ela alayin tikibarach ha'am. Val klolos achana lamatan teira. B'koyach zeh shenigla le'em melech malcham lachem ha'kadosh baruch hu ga'olam. U'kamaymer bal ha'god. Ani v'loi malach, ani v'loi sarav, ani v'loi ashleach, ani v'loi acher. Kadosh baruch hu b'chvoidei ba'atzmai. V'hainu dekiv, v'nshal yushklim emem tes shari tumah. Hineim hoya ba mishu acher. Afilu ma'adargis hayoyse nailas b'kedusha. Harei loizo b'vachle hoya yachal oitzis b'nei Yisrael misham ela aderabba. V'lechein hutzrach lovei dafke melech malchem lachem HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'atzmai she'ein lo yishayches klal l'seder ishtalshlos shezel ma shekosav v'posach havaya she'inyan adilug l'mayla m'seder ishtalshlos. Explanation. By Yitzias Mitzrayim, we learned earlier, ki barach ha'am. The nation had to run. This was a gift. Mashcheni, God gifted the Jewish people. He gave them the power to escape and to prepare for Matan Torah. As the Haggadah says, Hashem revealed himself to the Jews and he redeemed them. And we say in Pesach in the Haggadah, Ani, V'avarti be'eretz Mitzrayim, Ani, me and not an angel, me and not a saraf, me and not a shliach, me and nobody else. Why? Why couldn't Hashem send a messenger? And the answer to that is, the Arizal explains, because since the Jews were submerged in the 49 gates of impurity, if anybody else would have come, even the highest levels of holiness would have emerged. Not only would they not liberate the Jewish people, they themselves would have sunk. Because it was such a difficult and dark situation that if you would send any shliach there, even the holiest shliach, he would lose the plot. He would get pulled away by the undercurrent of unholiness. Hashem himself, who's completely outside of the realm of Ishtalshalos. Hashem himself was completely outside of the structure of creation. He had to come. That's why it says, Pesach, he jumped. Pesach is a leap, a quantum leap. God jumped over. Jumped over what? This represents dilug, leaping over the entire structures of reality. If I'm part of the structure, then ultimately there's a place that I can't go to. Because if I go there, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to get lost. I'm going to drown, chas v'shalom. If anybody else would have gone into Mitzrayim, they would have not been able to lift it up the Jewish people. They would not be able to lift up and emancipate the Jewish people at that moment. It had to come, mamish, from Hashem himself, who's completely not defined by the entire structure of what we call Ishtalshalos, the whole structure of creation. And therefore, as we say in Tehillim, Gam choshech lo yakshik mimeka, v'layla kayom yarik hachasheka kaira. Even darkness doesn't eclipse you. Like night is like day, like darkness is like light. Ukamaykin kashenitna libnei Yisrael mitzvah sfiris omer al kol hazmanim kulam. As I nemar lehem shenasinis koyach sheyuchaliyos usfartim lachem shekolam amtes yoyim yiyu sfurim mivurarim umazuchachim harezem emacheres hashabbos mebchina shalamayla legamri miseder ishtalshalos afilu bedargis shebegdusha lamayla gam mishabbos shebekatsha v'kaima. Just as it was the first time for generations, giving the Jews the mitzvah of Sfiris HaOmer for all generations, the ability to transform themselves. Usfartem lachem. What does usfartem mean? Not just you should count. Usfartem, he says, comes from the word sapphire, sapir, usfartem. Usfartim, like the word sapir, shining, sapphire stone. It's bright, it's luminescent. Usfartim lachem. You want that all your 49 midas should be shining, they should be bright. I need to go to a place that's mimacheres HaShabbos, higher than Shabbos, a place that's beyond the structure of creation, even of holiness. In other words, even higher than Shabbos, which is created as a holy day. V'kasher nimshach b'macheres HaShabbos, v'nasis ha'avodah d'usfartim lachem. Azai boyim sof kol sof le'viyani amelech hadorov, dekoy al matan Torah, she'oz hoya inyan da no nafshi ksovis yahavis anoichi, she'nitin lanu matun is abgegeben, atzmus u'mohus ein soif baruch. After this, we come to the third part of the pasuk. If you remember in the beginning of the Maimer, Moshcheni is Pesach. Acharecha narutza sfiras ha'omer. So now he says, you come to the king has brought me to his chambers. This is Matan Torah, which begins with Anoichi. Anoichi, the Gemara says, is an acronym. Anon nafshi ksavis yehavis. My soul I have written in and put in and embedded in Torah. Hashem has given us Atzmus U'Mahuz, the essence itself, the infinite one, blessed be He, through Matan Torah. This is after the Avodah of Sfiras HaOmer, which could only come in Macheres HaShabbos. And just like it was only Hashem who could come into Mitzrayim, Ani v'loi malach, Ani v'loi saraf, Ani v'loi shliach, Ani hu v'loi acher. Why not? Send an angel. No, I don't send angels. Some places you can't send angels. Send a saraf. I can't send a saraf. Send a shliach. Can't send a shliach. Send acher. Send somebody. I can't send anybody. Ani, sometimes I have to go only myself. Why? Because anybody else can get swept away by the undercurrent. It's too powerful. It's too intense. They may become too impressed by the darkness because they're part of the structure of Ishtalshalus. They're part of the structure of Zman. And because they're part of the structure of Zman, so therefore, ultimately, they're defined by the process, and when you're defined by the process, you can get lost in it. You have to be completely above it, completely out of the box, completely out of the structure of creation, never to be confused, never to get caught up in any darkness, because you are the author of the darkness and of the light.
What did the Rabbi mean when he said,
so, for all times, in other words, just like it happened when the Jews were taken out of Mitzrayim the first time around, Hashem gave them the koyach through Pasach Hashem. So therefore, when He gives them the mitzvah for generations, for all times, to count the Omer, He puts in the words B'macheres HaShabbos. You need something that's higher than Shabbos. But he adds, this is the last section. But as a preparation to get from Yitzias Mitzrayim to Matan Torah, you have in the middle Lag BaOmer. What's Lag BaOmer? Sha'azu gili pnimiyas haTorah. Reb Shimon ben Yochai revealed pnimiyas haTorah, which is Reb Shimon ben Yochai was the author of the Zohar, the one who revealed the foundational teachings of Kabbalah. The truth is, learning has a system. There's a shtalshlus, there's an evolution. You first start learning Nigla, and then you get to Pnimiyas. You first start learning Aleph Beis, and you learn Chumash, you learn Mishnayos, and you learn Gemara, you learn Halacha. There's a system of Torah. You learn Nigla, you learn the revealed parts, and then later in life, you come to the Pnimiyas. True. Mikol makam tzarich leida shakoyach sheyochal liyaseder ze gufa hu ha'idei ze sheyesh tchila in lag ba'omer shewinyan gili pnimiyas ha'Torah sheze noisen koyach shelimud nigla the Torah yikid ba'il lemev. Which means, the funny thing, Shavuos is Matan Torah. What comes before Shavuos? Lag ba'omer. It says about Lag ba'omer that Lag BaOmer, Chabad Chassidus, it says the Lag BaOmer is Matan Torah of Pnimiyas HaTorah. It's the Matan Torah of Pnimiyas HaTorah. So that has to be after Shavuos, not before Shavuos. First comes Shavuos, Nigla, and then comes Lag BaOmer, which is Pnimiyas. Now the truth is we have to say that Shavuos is the Matan Torah for everything. Matan Torah was everything. Nigla, Pnimis, Hashem gave the whole Torah. But the way it comes out in history, Lag BaOmer was a special revelation of Pnimis HaTorah. So the Rebbe says, yeah, because you have to know that the koyach for this Seder itself, Nigla and then Pnimius, comes from the fact that you first have Lag BaOmer before Shavuos, which is the Gili Pnimius HaTorah. Because Pnimius HaTorah allows that the Nigla should be learned the way it has to be learned. V'gam shaydei Nigla the Torah yavoyu lePnimius HaTorah, and that the Nigla brings you to Pnimius. What does this mean? Sometimes a person could learn Torah, but they don't appreciate the godliness in the Torah, the divinity in the Torah, the Kedushas HaTorah. So Lag BaOmer comes before Shavuos because that itself, that you're learning Nigla and then Pnimius, also needs the koyach of Lag BaOmer, which is the Pnimius HaTorah, which infuses the Nigla with a deeper spiritual depth. And it helps that from the Nigla you come to the Pnimius. It's not two separate Torahs, chas v'shalom. Va'inyan bazeh, David asks Hashem, this is in Tehillim capital Kuf Yud Tes, Pasuk Yud Ches, open up my eyes, Gal Einai, expose my eyes, Va'abita neflois b'Torah so I could see the wonders of your Torah. The Av Shalom Ad Leirak Nigla the Torah L'Gam Pnimius HaTorah M'Kol M'Kim Le'Yigia Le'in the neflois b'Torah. David wanted to see the neflois, the wonders of Torah. Gal Einai. Sometimes I'm learning, and I say, Hashem, open my eyes so I could see the wonders of Torah. I want to see the Pnimius of Torah. And the Pnimius of Torah itself, he says, David learned Nigla, he learned Pnimius, but he still didn't see the neflois, the wonders. Kivin Shazawiyim, because primarily this will be revealed with Mashiach. Kamashakasav Kimeit Seis Chameretz Mitzrayim Ar Enu neflois. The pasuk in Micha says, Hashem says, I will show you wonders like when the days when you left Mitzrayim. When Mashiach comes, I'll show you wonders. That's going to be neflois. Neflois is nun ployas. Nun ployas. Shazau shar hanun she is galalas love. The Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah that Moshe grasped 49 gates of holiness. Memtes shari bina, but then there's shar hanun, the 50th gate. Right? We count 49 days, but then there's the 50th gate. That's nun ployas. So David HaMelech says, I want to see the nefloyas b'Torah. I want to see the full infinite depth of Torah. And Gal Einai is what? Gal, as we will see, is Lag. Amnamas chala b'zeh yeshna kvar heichel milag ba'omer. Ayidei Rabbi, shepasach esatzin is Gal Einai v'abit nefloyas b'Torah. Rabbi is the one who opened this new channel of Gal Einai to see the nefloyas in Torah. Especially on the anniversary of his day of his passing, which is Lag BaOmer, Lamed Gimel, Sha'az Ha'ya'inyin Gal Einai. Lamed Gimel is the same letters like Gal, which is Gilui, open up, expose my eyes. The Av Shekal Yom of Lamad Razin Deiraisa. The Zohar tells a story that his whole life he learned the secrets of Torah. He nibiyay mistalkuse Gila Razin Tmirin de Loi Glia Nad Hashta. On the day of his actual ptira, that says in Zohar, he revealed transcendent secrets that he never revealed till that moment. Ba'amroi, he said then, on the day of his passing, that there will be no revelation like the one in his times, in his generation, until the day of Mashiach, because then will be revealed what Rashbi opened. The channel he opened, which is Lag BaOmer, Gal Eino, Abitin of Flois B'Torah Secha, which comes even before Shavuos, which is the primary Matan Torah, because the ability, the foundation to know how to learn Torah, even Nigla, comes through Pnimius. The Pnimius gives a depth to how to learn Nigla, how to see Nigla, how to appreciate Nigla, and from the Nigla then you can come to the Pnimius.
Is that why Kiddushin precedes Nisuin?
What do you mean?
Like Kiddushin is the Pnimius, represents the Pnimius of the relationship. And that must infuse.
It could be. Al pi yadua, it's known shebachol shana v'shana mis'eredim ayda pam kolanyana m'klol samayim the matru shoyeh b'pam r'shayna. It's known that in Yiddishkeit, everything that happened the first time around, every year on that date, it comes back to life. Right? We say Pesach is once again, you have the energy of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So every year, the same things that happened the first time resurface and are reinfused into the world. So when a Jew on Lag BaOmer, he stands in a tnua of iskashrus to limud pnimiyus HaTorah, which means he stands in a motion, in a posture of connection to the learning of pnimiyus HaTorah, to follow the path that Reb Shimon ben Yochai opened up, and to continue this for the whole year. When a Jew puts himself or herself in that place on Lag BaOmer, this type of iskashrus, this type of connection to the learning of pnimiyus HaTorah, so this becomes an introduction to Matan Torah. Haviyani HaMelech HaDarav, v'zeu gam eis hamuchshel levakish v'lifol oizbeten, shetekuyim bakashas David HaMelech gal einav abidin eflois b'Torah secha. And then Lag BaOmer is also the appropriate time to achieve the request of what David HaMelech asked for. Open my eyes and let me see the wonders of your Torah. Shegam b'Torah secha. Limud nigla the Torah v'limud razin da'iraisi yegilu haneflayis. That even as I'm learning your Torah, which is the nigla, which is the secrets of Torah, I should see the neflayis of Torah sacha. V'ad l'bias Mashiach tzedkeinu b'mheina b'yameinu. Until the moment of the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days, shalhu yilamid pnimiyus HaTorah kol b'nei Yisrael kulam. It says that Mashiach is going to learn the deepest core of Torah with all of the Jewish people. We'll take some questions. This completes at least one dimension of the Maimer. Question: if Hoyd Shebahoyd is the ultimate emancipation, why is it considered to be the lowest level? Great question. The answer is, it's the ultimate emancipation because it reaches the lowest level. In other words, it allows me to be emancipated under all circumstances, even in a situation where I'm in a lower place. So therefore, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't be emancipated. The chiddush of Hoyd Shebahoyd is that I could be emancipated then. That's exactly the point.
And can Rabbi explain why Yesod and Malchus are considered in a different, how to relate to Yesod and Malchus in relation to this Hoyd?
Yeah, so why, good question, why is Hoyd Ikir Hamidus and the rest of that? Because Yesod and Malchus, as we explained, Yesod is bonding, communicativity, and Malchus is the actual relationship. So Yesod and Malchus are already bringing it outside of the person to the other person. Till Yesod, it's all an experience within the person. Yesod is already how to communicate, right? Just like we said that Yesod is the bris. So that's the tool that allows the connection between a husband and a wife who's outside of him, a second person. And then Malchus is the actual, as he said, the actual words and actions. So both of them represent the actual implementation outside of me. That's why he says that the Ikar Hamidus end with Hoyd. Next question. We start every day with Maidani. We end the day with Kriya Shema. The whole day, we start the day with Maidani. We end the day with Biyodcha Afkid Ruchi Padisa Isi Hashem Keilemes, with Kriya Shema. It seems like the whole day is sandwiched, and we say Tachman by Krishma, which is also a form of confession. So the whole day is sandwiched between these acknowledgments. Is that the case? Okay, yeah. The way I understood is the lower level of Haidah occurs when it makes sense to the brain to surrender. Not a big deal if an army is about to be wiped out, but surrenders instead. The higher level occurs when the person surrenders even if it makes no sense. In other words, there's surrender that makes sense, there's surrender that doesn't make sense. The question is why you're surrendering. If it doesn't make sense, why are you surrendering? So that's why there's the animal soul Shabbat and the divine soul Shabbat. The animal soul Shabbat is I'm either stubborn or I'm brainwashed, so therefore I'm surrendering even if it doesn't make sense. But the deeper level of Shabbat in Kedusha is that I realize the fact that if I wait till I understand that I should surrender, I'm going to wait forever. So therefore, this is where stubbornness is very healthy. This is where I tell myself, I'm going to surrender, even if my brain doesn't agree I should surrender. The surrender itself is going to come through surrender. I'll give a practical example. You have a person, who for whatever reason gets entangled in a mess, in a big mess, and they can't get out of it. They can't come down from the tree at all. And if they're using their mind plays so many games with them. Their mind says, no, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to be right, and I'm going to work it out, and they'll all agree with me at the end, and I'm get deeper and deeper and deeper into a mess. If I ask my mind, should I surrender? My mind will say, no, don't surrender. You're going to be right. This is where you need Hoitcha B'Hoid. This is where my mind has lost the plot. I have to be able to say, I'm going to surrender even if my mind disagrees. The surrender itself is going to come through Midas HaHoid, Hoitcha B'Hoid. Right? You have sometimes people, they stubbornly cling on to issues and positions. It doesn't make sense anymore, but their mind is not capable of teaching them that truth. And you have to just say, I'm moida that I have to be moida. And when you can do it, it's a very liberating experience. If you have a happy-go-lucky person who hears a glimmer of Torah, he may feel or realize on a deep level that there's something true in this revelation. Not on the lower level of Maida, where it makes sense to admit and submit, but on a higher level of admitting and submitting, even when it doesn't make sense at all. Is this true what I'm saying? Yeah, I think you're saying a very deep idea, that sometimes in life, a person hears something, and you don't get it. You don't even get that you should surrender, because it's too much. But you get enough, you hear enough to be able to say that I should surrender, even if I don't understand that I should surrender. And I think that's a very powerful idea. In other words, there is a deep voice inside of me where I could submit, even when it doesn't make sense at all, because I realize that my brain is going to have too much resistance. So that's the important thing, to distinguish between the animal soul Hoitcha B'Hoid and the divine soul Hoitcha B'Hoid. Because you don't want to be in a cult, you know?
So this voice, this deeper voice that transcends my feelings and my thoughts to surrender is basically the Nefesh Elokis.
Right. Hoitcha B'Hoid is from the Nefesh Elokis, and I have to work through like everything, I have to work through the Hoitcha B'Hoid of my animal soul. I'm trying to understand what you said about Mimacheres HaShabbos. You said that sometimes we have to jump over our limitations and not grapple with them because we're stuck. An outsider is by definition outside the quicksand the person is sunk into and stuck into. Even Hashem, in Hishtalshalus, is stuck by the limits of the natural boundaries he set up. So the idea of Pesach is that he had to leap over all of the levels that he himself created, to overcome the entire system of nature that he himself set up. He had to jump over his own expressions, and he couldn't send an angel because the angel would be as much stuck and would be immersed in the quicksand of creation as we are in our own personal quicksand. Yeah. This fine fellow on Zoom seems to ask good questions. That's you, Reb Daniel, and initiate a dialogue. The problem is that those of us listening on the site cannot hear him. Okay, I hope I repeated his questions. Chevre, tonight Be'ezer Hashem is Lag BaOmer. I wish you all a gewaldige Lag BaOmer, a guten Yom Tov. I'll be speaking Be'ezer Hashem at the Hatzalathon around 9:20. You can watch it on the yeshiva.net. It's a big event tonight. Siyum Sefer Torah and Hatzalathon. Sunday morning, we have a shir 10 o'clock a.m. 10 o'clock a.m. It's going to be a few Sundays. We're beginning to learn Rambam Hilchos Melachim, the Rambam about Mashiach. What is Mashiach? The Rambam's view. We're going to be learning the Lubavitcher Rebbe's Sichos on Hilchos Melachim, on the last section of Rambam that deals with Geula. That's going to be this Sunday morning, 10 a.m. right here on the yeshiva.net. Everybody's invited. Monday morning, we will begin a new Maimer. I wish you a beautiful day, an amazing Lag BaOmer, an uplifting day, an uplifting Lag BaOmer. Gal Einai. May we open our eyes. V'abita neflois b'teirasecha. A wonderful Shabbos to everybody, and Hatzlacha.
Thank you.
Regards to Yerushalayim.
What's with the book? What's with the book about the business mimer?
I think they're working on it still, no?
Bezriel is still here?
I don't know.
No, he left already. No, if there's any help needed, I'm here and I can help. I don't know.
Help with what?
Help with the book.
What type? Like what?
Work and money. I'm sure she don't need help, but if he's printing it, but work. I don't know which kind of work.
Okay. Thank you so much. That means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate everything you're doing. And good job. Bye-bye.
Help with what? You were tough as the